Once upon a time, there was an old woman named Mama Micheal. She was 70 years old and had only one child, a son named Michael, whom she loved more than anything in the world. Mama Micheal was a very hard-working woman. Every day, she would wake up before the sun came up and head out to do any job she could find, just to make sure Michael could eat, go to school, and one day become a successful man. Mama Micheal was not a young woman anymore, and her body was often tired and aching. But that didn't stop her. She carried heavy bags of sand and blocks to help build houses. Sometimes, she would even help people at the market by carrying their heavy loads, just to earn a little money. Every day, she did 3 or 4 different jobs, each one harder than the last, and barely got enough to eat. Some days, she didn't even have enough for 2 full meals. But she didn't mind because all she wanted was for Michael to have a better life. One day, Mama Micheal was feeling especially weak, but she still went to work at the market. She was helping a woman carry her heavy load when suddenly, she stumbled and fell. The bag she was carrying slipped from her hands, and everything tumbled to the ground. The woman she was helping grew very angry, and without even a second thought, she slapped Mama Micheal right across the face. The slap stung, and tears filled Mama Micheal's eyes, but she didn't cry out. She looked at the woman and quietly said, "The only reason I'm doing this is to make sure my son becomes a great man one day." The woman didn't care. She simply walked away, leaving Mama Micheal alone and hurting. But Mama Micheal wiped her tears, stood up, and kept going. She kept working day after day, through all the pain, hunger, and hardships. She kept her hope alive that one day, Michael would become successful, and all her suffering would be worth it. Years passed, and her hard work finally paid off. Michael became a successful man, just like Mama Micheal had dreamed. But as the years went by, something strange happened. Even though Michael had enough money to take care of her, he didn't come to see her. He didn't call her, and he didn't send her anything. Mama Micheal waited and waited, hoping he would remember all the sacrifices she made, but each day, her hope faded a little more. Mama Micheal grew older and weaker, yet every night, she looked out her window, wondering if tomorrow would be the day Michael would remember her. And though she kept waiting, there was always a tiny spark of hope in her heart, believing that one day, her son would come back to her. And so, Mama Micheal's story goes on, filled with love, sacrifice, and a heart full of hope, as she waits, always believing that one day, her son will remember her. Mama Micheal sat alone by her small, dusty window, her eyes fixed on the path leading to her home, hoping each day that she'd see Michael walking down the road with open arms. Her hair had turned grey, her hands were rough and wrinkled from years of hard work, and her back was bent from carrying so many heavy loads. But still, she waited. Each morning, as the sun rose, Mama Micheal would say to herself, "Today is the day he'll come." She would brush off her worn clothes and sit outside, watching people pass by, imagining her son coming down the road with a big smile. But day after day, only strangers passed by, and Mama Micheal's heart felt a little heavier. Sometimes, neighbors would stop by to check on her. They would say, "Mama Micheal, you've done so much for your son. He's a great man now, but he doesn't even come to see you." She would simply smile softly, trying to hold back tears, and say, "He's busy with his life. I know he loves me, even if he doesn't show it." But deep down, her heart ached. She missed the little boy she used to carry on her back. She remembered how she would skip meals to buy him books for school and go to bed hungry just so he would have food to eat. Those memories kept her warm, even when the world around her seemed cold and lonely. One rainy evening, as the sky darkened and thunder rolled, Mama Micheal lay in her small bed, feeling weak and tired. Her heart felt like it was breaking, and her body was too weary to move. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Michael, my son, I just want to see you one more time." Just then, she thought she heard footsteps outside. Her heart leapt, thinking, "Is that Michael? Has he finally come to see me?" But when she managed to gather her strength and looked out the window, no one was there. Only the sound of raindrops falling echoed through the empty night. Her heart sank, but she held on to her hope, whispering, "Tomorrow, he'll come. Tomorrow, for sure." Her heart sank, but she held on to her hope, whispering, "Tomorrow, he'll come. Tomorrow, for sure." And so, Mama Micheal's story continues, filled with love, patience, and a hope that never fades, even as the years go by. She waits, just as she always has, believing that one day her son will come home and that her sacrifices will be remembered. Yet, her heart held on tightly to her dreams. She never lost hope that Micheal would come and wrap her in a warm embrace, the kind she used to give him when he was a child. One chilly morning, Mama Micheal decided to visit the small town centre, hoping she might hear news of her son. She walked slowly, leaning on an old stick, her steps shaky and uncertain. People looked at her with pity, some whispering, "How could her son forget about her after everything she's done?" But Mama Micheal only smiled softly, choosing to believe that Micheal was busy and would remember her soon. As she reached the town square, a young woman came up to her. "Mama Micheal," she said kindly, "you shouldn't be out here alone in the cold. Can I help you with anything?" Mama Micheal looked into the girl's eyes and said, "Thank you, my child. I was just hoping maybe my son would be here." Her voice cracked as she spoke, but she quickly wiped away a tear. The young woman felt her heart ache for Mama Micheal. "He's a successful man now, Mama. I'm sure he's just caught up with his work, but I know he'll come back soon." Mama Micheal nodded, trying to believe the comforting words. She patted the young woman's hand and whispered, "I'm just proud of him. He has everything I ever wanted for him." That evening, she returned to her small home, exhausted from her journey. As she sat by the window, her eyes growing heavy with sleep, she thought she saw a figure in the distance. Her heart skipped a beat, and she whispered, "Micheal." But as her eyes focused, she saw it was only a neighbor passing by. Disappointment filled her heart, but she reminded herself, tomorrow he will come." Each night became a battle between hope and sorrow. She would dream of her son, of the laughter they used to share, and the promise she made to herself to make him a great man. In her dreams, she saw him sitting beside her, holding her hand, telling her how grateful he was. But each morning, she woke up alone. Time passed, and Mama Micheal grew weaker. Her neighbors brought her small meals and comforted her, saying, "You have done more than enough, Mama. It's time for you to rest." But Mama Micheal would always shake her head, saying, "Not yet. I will rest when I see my son." And so, Mama Micheal's days stretched on, filled with endless waiting, quiet tears, and an unbreakable love for her son. Her story had no end, for as long as there was breath in her, there was hope. And with each sunrise, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, he'll come." As the days passed, Mama Micheal's strength continued to fade. Her hands, once strong from years of carrying bricks and heavy loads, could barely hold a cup of water now. One evening, as the sun set, casting a warm orange glow over everything, a neighbor came by with a basket of food. She was a kind woman, always checking in on Mama Micheal, and tonight she sat down beside her. "Mama Micheal," the woman said gently, "I know you love Micheal with all your heart, but it breaks my heart to see you waiting so long. Maybe it's time to rest. He might not come." The neighbor held her hand for a while, offering silent comfort, and soon left, but Mama Micheal's heart stayed hopeful. She closed her eyes that night, remembering the way Michael's tiny hands once clung to her, his laughter filling the little home, his dreams big and bright. She remembered every moment as if it had just happened yesterday. As days turned into weeks, whispers spread around the village about Mama Micheal's fading health. People would come by with small gifts, a loaf of bread, or a warm blanket, hoping to bring her some comfort. And each time, she would smile weakly and thank them, but her eyes would drift back to the window, waiting, hoping. Then, one cold winter's night, a knock came at the door. Mama Micheal's heart fluttered, hope surging through her, but her hands were too weak to reach the door quickly. She whispered, "Micheal." Mama Micheal smiled and tried to stay strong, thanking them again, though deep down, her heart ached. She lay back on her bed, feeling her energy drain, yet her eyes never strayed from the window. Her story continued, every breath filled with her unending love for her son, every heartbeat a prayer for his return. She whispered softly, maybe tomorrow he'll come." And as the stars filled the sky, Mama Micheal drifted into a peaceful sleep, her heart wrapped in memories, her spirit ever hopeful, leaving her story open-ended, always waiting, forever believing in the power of a mother's love. As winter's chill deepened, Mama Micheal grew frailer. Her neighbors became like family, stopping by daily to check on her. They brought her soup, blankets, and, most importantly, warm smiles. But none of it filled the empty space in her heart where Michael's presence was meant to be. Each evening, she would ask anyone who visited, "Have you heard from Michael? Has anyone seen him?" The villagers would shake their heads sadly, but she never gave up hope. She kept looking down that dusty path, her heart refusing to let go of the dream that one day, Michael would come walking down it with open arms. One cold night, as snowflakes began to fall, Mama Micheal sat by the window, her eyes gazing far into the distance. A young boy from the village sat beside her, telling her stories to make her smile. "Mama, did you know that the stars are like candles? They light up the sky just for you." Mama Micheal chuckled softly, her voice like a whisper. "Yes, my dear, and perhaps one of those stars will lead Michael back home to me." The boy looked at her with wide eyes. "Don't worry, Mama Micheal. He will come. My papa says that people find their way back to those they love." Mama Micheal patted the boy's hand, smiling through her weariness. "I believe it, too. I believe it with all my heart." As the days turned to weeks, a rumor spread that Michael was indeed coming back to the village. The news brought excitement, and everyone hoped that it was finally time for Mama Micheal's long wait to end. The villagers made sure her little home was warm and cozy, and they brought her favorite meals, preparing her for the joyous reunion. One evening, there was a commotion outside. The villagers rushed to her house, saying, "Mama Micheal, Michael is coming. We saw him in the village." Her heart raced, and though her body was weak, she sat up, brushing her hair and wrapping herself in a warm shawl. Her hands trembled with excitement and fear all at once. "Is it true? Is he really coming?" she whispered, her eyes bright with hope. But as night fell, Michael still hadn't appeared. Hours passed, and the villagers slowly began to leave, shaking their heads with disappointment. Some said they had seen him, others said it must have been a mistake. But Mama Micheal sat by her window, watching, her heart refusing to believe he wouldn't come. And so, another night passed, and another morning came. Mama Michael's hope remained unbroken, her heart still full of love and forgiveness. Each breath she took whispered, "Maybe today." One bright afternoon, the village was buzzing with excitement. News had finally spread that Michael had returned, and this time, he wasn't just visiting. He was coming back with great wealth, his fiancée by his side, and grand plans to build a luxurious mansion in the village. The villagers gathered in the town square, whispering to one another about Mama Micheal's long wait, wondering if today would finally be the day she found peace. Michael arrived in a shiny car, his clothes sharp, and his fiancée, a beautiful woman with city manners, walking beside him. The villagers were thrilled to see him, crowding around, congratulating him on his success, and whispering their amazement at how far he had come. But amidst all the excitement, Mama Micheal hobbled over, her heart pounding with a mixture of joy and nervousness. She pushed through the crowd, her frail frame wrapped in her worn shawl, and called out softly, "Michael, my son, you've come back." But then he glanced at his fiancée and the villagers, and a hardness settled over him. In a cold, dismissive voice, he said, "I don't know this woman. She's just a poor old lady, probably wanting money from me." The crowd gasped. They looked at Mama Micheal, who stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked into the face of the son she had once sacrificed everything for. She reached out a trembling hand toward him, whispering, "Michael, it's me, your mother." Michael's fiancée gave him a questioning look, and he quickly added, "She must be mistaken. Let's not waste any more time." The villagers couldn't believe what they were seeing. One man stepped forward, trying to reason with Michael. "Michael, this is your mother. We all know her. We watched her struggle every day to make sure you had everything you needed." But Michael only looked away, avoiding their eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about. My mother is long gone. This woman is just trying to cause trouble."
Through her tears, she whispered, "I gave everything so that you could stand where you are today, Michael. I never wanted anything but to see you happy. Through her tears, she whispered, I gave everything, everything so that you could stand where you are today, Michael. I never wanted anything but to see you happy. But Michael's heart had grown cold. He turned away, leaving her there as he led his fiancée to see the plot where his mansion would be built. The villagers watched, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others wiping away tears. Many of them had seen Mama Micheal carrying heavy loads, going hungry, working tirelessly, all for the son who now refused to acknowledge her. One young girl, moved by Mama Micheal's pain, knelt beside her and held her hand, saying, Mama Micheal, we see you. We remember everything you did for him. You may be alone now, but in our hearts, you are the mother of this whole village. Mama Micheal looked up, grateful for the kindness, but her heart remained shattered, torn between love for the son she had lost and the pain of his rejection. The villagers gathered around, offering words of comfort, and vowed to support her. But deep down, Mama Micheal's story remained open-ended, her heart clinging to the hope that maybe one day, Micheal would look back and finally understand the depth of her love and sacrifice. And so, Mama Micheal continued her days in the village, her soul forever waiting, her heart holding on to the faintest hope that one day, her son would remember her, and the love she had poured out for him would not be forgotten. Michael's life in the city had taken a terrible turn. The fiancée he trusted so much had betrayed him, taking all his money and leaving him with nothing. His dreams of building a mansion in the village and living a life of luxury crumbled in an instant. Alone, ashamed, and with no one to turn to, Michael realized the only place he could go was back to the village he once left behind. As he approached the village, memories flooded his mind. Memories of his childhood, of his mother working tirelessly to give him a better life. He felt a pang of guilt but brushed it aside, convincing himself that Mama Micheal would forgive him, as she always did. But as Michael entered the village, something felt different. The usual liveliness was gone, replaced by a heavy silence. He noticed a crowd gathered near his mother's small house. People were dressed in black, their faces somber. His heart sank, and a cold fear gripped him. What's going on? He asked a man standing nearby. The man turned and stared at Michael, his expression hard. You've come too late, he said bitterly. Mama Micheal is gone. Michael froze, the words hitting him like a storm. Gone? He whispered, his voice trembling. No, it can't be. The man's eyes were full of anger. Yes, she's gone. She waited for you every day, Michael. She loved you more than anything, even when you denied her. She gave her life for you, but you abandoned her. The pain and shame of your rejection broke her heart. Michael felt his knees give way, and he sank to the ground. His chest tightened, and tears poured down his face as the reality of what he had done crashed over him. He had returned too late. The villagers, who had gathered to mourn Mama Micheal, turned to see Michael crying. But their faces were not kind. They were filled with anger and disappointment. One woman stepped forward and said, You're crying now, Michael, but where were these tears when your mother was alive? Where was your love for her when she needed you the most? Another man added, She gave everything for you. She worked until her body couldn't take it anymore. She went hungry so you could eat. And when you became successful, you turned your back on her. Michael could only sob, unable to defend himself. He looked at the small house he had grown up in, the place where his mother had waited for him every single day, and realized he had let her down in the worst way possible. The villagers didn't let him attend the burial. You don't deserve to stand by her grave, one of them said harshly. You didn't care for her in life, so don't pretend now. Michael spent the night outside, sitting by the path his mother had once watched, waiting for him to return. He whispered into the dark, Mama, I'm so sorry. I was blind. I let pride and selfishness take over. I hope you can forgive me, wherever you are. But no answer came. The only sound was the wind, carrying the whispers of the love his mother had always given him, a love he would never feel again. From that day on, Michael stayed in the village, living in his mother's small house. He worked hard, trying to help the villagers and make amends for his mistakes. But no matter what he did, the guilt never left him. He spent every night staring at the stars, whispering to his mother, hoping that somehow she could hear him. And so, Michael's story became one of regret and loss, a painful reminder that the love of a mother is irreplaceable and that time, once lost, can never be regained. And so, Michael's story became one of regret and loss, a painful reminder that the love of a mother is irreplaceable and that time, once lost, can never be regained. The end. Thank you for watching. We love you all.